Alright guys, here we are for another video. This is in tribute to the liberals who, I found this on the liberalists Facebook group, and I'm going to be one of the ones who actually takes a look at it to see what Vaush has to say, and generally not just outright dismiss him, but actually look at, you know, what his arguments are. And we hope that Vaush has improved in his argument making, because most of us just kind of poo-poo him away. We don't take him very seriously, but he's dedicated 34 minutes to a 4-minute PragerU video. And the topic of it is, are all prisoners violent murderers? PragerU lies about the incarceration. And if you look at the thumbnail, it says PragerU debunked. So let's see what Vaushi has to say about it this time around.
All right, it's time, folks. After a month long, or thereabouts, PragerU hiatus. Let's find out. Have their arguments gotten any better?
Our
Most likely.
prisons are crowded with people who shouldn't.
Nope! Shit arguments. Debunked. Goodbye!
Well, if nothing, Vaush
I'm
is
kidding, of course.
self-aware.
Sorry, I won't
Yes.
do that again.
Yes, he's
The victims of a racist justice system.
kidding now,
This is the
allegedly.
popular progressive narrative,
True.
but it's wrong in every respect.
Not true. Hit me up.
Dangerously wrong.
Oh,
The
shit.
U.S. does have a very large prison population.
Who the fuck is this guy? What are you? Are you younger than me? Are you like 18? What are you?
Not
Oh, wow, wait, that's actually pretty accomplished. Deputy Director of Legal Policy, Manhattan Institute. But what is the Manhattan Institute? Raphael Mangual.
Okay, now this shit right here really fucking annoys me. Look, if you're online and you're engaging in a discussion, you're going to address someone's argument. The shittiest thing you can do, in my opinion, this is just my personal observation. When I am in an internet discussion, this is something that this is the last thing on my mind, and I see it so goddamn frequently. It's when you engage it's when you're in a discussion on the internet and you're discussing a topic, and no matter what the topic is, it becomes apparent in the thread that this person, instead of addressing your argument, starts going through your profile, um, your education, if you posted it, your job, whether or not you posted it. It's just they're trying to get a feel of who you are as a person, and what's your credibility, or is there something else we can, poke jabs at. They're not addressing the argument. They're not addressing the merits of your uh, of the discussion. They want to attack you personally. This is what pisses me off when Vaush is looking this person up, and well, let's see how that pans out for him.
This guy's young.
Yes,
Let's
he
see.
is young.
Is a fellow and deputy director of legal policy at the Manhattan Institute and a contributing editor of City Journal. He has authored and co-authored a number of MI reports and op-eds on issues ranging from urban crime and jail violence to broader matters of criminal and civil justice reform.
So he has relevant experience in the field, which is admittedly atypical of PragerU. All seems to be well on this side of the equation.
His work has been featured and mentioned in a wide variety of publications. What is the Manhattan Institute?
And there we go. If he can't attack the individual, he will attack the overall ethos of the organization. Again, this is not Vaush arguing in good faith against the argument. He is instead trying to look for any out he can have to avoid discussing the argument. So again, like right off the bat, I don't have any confidence in this discussion because he's preparing to do everything but discuss the actual topic at hand. He's going to instead attack the reputation of the institution, pretty much because he couldn't get the individual. But let's see how this pans out.
A conservative 501 nonprofit American think tank focused on domestic policy and urban affairs.
Oh no. What a absolute... That should not exist. What are we going to do, Vaush? Vaush, it's a conservative think tank. God forbid.
Well, let's see how this goes.
Pretty much.
Because I've got a secret weapon, guys. Are you ready to hear what my secret weapon is?
Let's
I
hear
did
it,
my
Vaush.
baccalaureate thesis on prison issues.
Oh, I'm sure this should be just so easy
Too
for you
many
then.
innocent people are incarcerated, but because too many people commit serious, usually violent crimes. With rare exceptions, that's why most people are imprisoned in America. Period.
Uh-oh. We're already on the Google search, guys. What's he gonna find? What's he gonna find?
41% of convicted and unconvicted jail inmates in 2002 had a current or prior violent offense. 46% were nonviolent recidivists. From 2000 to 2008, the state prison population increased by 159,200 prisoners, and violent offenders account for 60% of this increase.
Not exactly what we were looking for, but pans out. Okay.
I could probably spend some time looking through this, but if I had to take a rough guess, I would probably say that approximately half of the people in prison, half to 60%, I would say, committed a violent crime, which is a far cry from...
Because too many innocent people are
Hang on. Far cry. I can speak. Far cry from what, Vaush? A far cry from what? You didn't finish that thought. You didn't really, you left us kind of hanging there. So, far cry from what claim exactly? Let's continue this.
incarcerated, but because too many people commit serious, usually violent crimes. With rare exceptions, that's why most people are imprisoned in
With rare exceptions. Gotta watch out for them weasel word, folks. I would not consider approximately half to be a rare exception. There are a fuck ton of people who are locked up over...
No, there are a fuck ton of people locked up for drug offenses. That doesn't mean that when they were arrested that they were not called out for a violent act or for a domestic violence issue. Again, the call when they get the call out, that's not what they're arrested for, that's not what they're charged, and that's not even what they're convicted for. So just because you have a drug conviction doesn't mean that's what you were called out for when the 911 call was placed or when you were pulled over or anything of that nature. Just because it's a drug charge doesn't mean that there's not a violent crime behind it.
nonviolent offenses. Like an insane number of people.
America. Period. Full stop. Before presenting the facts, let me add these caveats.
Hit me with it.
It's unacceptable that any innocent person is behind bars.
Sure.
Punishment must always fit, not exceed the crime.
Kind of a meaningless platitude, because there's no objective way of determining what punishment fits a crime. So
yes, subjective
a crime that I would say doesn't
morality.
deserve any punishment is something you would probably believe deserves more punishment.
We should do everything we can to reduce the rates of recidivism, committing more crime after release.
Yes.
And finally, everyone in prison should be treated humanely.
Yeah?
So
But
there's
let's
no
not fool
issue.
ourselves that our prisons are full of people who shouldn't be there. That's simply not the case. Let's start with those convicted of drug offenses, the source of so much of the mass incarceration myth. While it's true that about half of federal prisoners are incarcerated on drug charges, federal inmates constitute only about 12% of the American prison population. Almost 9 of every 10 prison inmates are in state facilities, and
And what about the percentage of those state facilities that are filled with people who committed nonviolent drug offenses?
very few of them, less than 15%, are there for drug-related offenses.
What about other nonviolent offenses? So already this is so you're arguing this is a rare exception, but half of federal prison inmates are there for drug charges. That's not even including nonviolent, non-drug offenses.
So when we say nonviolent, Vaush, for clarity, would white-collar crime be considered nonviolent? Just curious.
And now we're looking at 15% of just drug charges.
Yes, 15% of most of the state prison population. That's actually not much of what you've been talking about, but okay.
State facilities. What about the rest?
4 times that number are behind bars for one of the following serious crimes: murder, 14%, rape or sexual assault, 13%, robbery, 13%, aggravated or simple assault, 11%, and burglary, 9%.
Okay, and of these, how many of these are violent crimes? Murder, rape and sexual assault, aggravated assault, and robbery are violent crimes. I think robbery is considered a violent crime. So that would be 14 plus 26, that'd be 40. That's 51% of the crimes listed here are violent crimes, meaning that a total of possibly 49% of crimes committed in state prisons are non-violent. It's so...
Yes, and only 15% of those allegedly nonviolent are drug-related. Let's go back to, he's going to spurg out on burglary. Apparently only the first degree of burglary is considered a violent crime. However, we don't know if this 9% of burglary, see, what they do not do is say first degree murder, second degree, this is just all murder. All rape, all robbery, all aggravated assault. Now, the reason burglary is so small is because it might potentially be just first-degree burglary. Vaush will say maybe it's all burglary. We don't know. We didn't have the breakdown of the stats. So here we go.
So interesting to me how every time we try to get, like, PragerU gives us these data breakdowns, they don't just show like the total list of data. They give a narrative and then they show a fraction.
Yes, Vaush. Just like you, they only present the information they feel is relevant to their point. The real key thing here is at least they have data to back their point. You, on the other hand, have a Google search, which may or may not be current, may or may not be active. I will be providing PragerU's sources in the link of this, in the description of this video.
Fraction of the total data that supports that narrative. They never just give us the stats. yeah, robbery because you have to threaten the person. Yeah, robbery is a violent crime. But burglary isn't because the person's not home.
In short, violent criminals make up the clear majority of the state prison population.
A burglary is... Wait, I'm sorry. Is a burglary considered...
He's literally going to spurg out about whether or not burglary is a violent act. You know, that action where you break into someone's home to steal shit. Whether it's yours or not, whether they're home or not, but then, burglary, first degree, requires the intent to break in and cause harm. That's what we're going to learn shortly. What's sad is that he is going to mince over whether or not this person is a violent offender and whether or not they belong in prison, as if prison only should go to people who violently assault people, and that's the only reason why prison exists. I would love if Vaush came out and said white-collar crime, stock market crime, real estate crime, none of that is actual crime because no violence occurred. I would love to hear Vaush make that argument, but I really doubt he is. We're going into apologetics for burglary. Yes.
Breaking and entering into a dwelling with intent to commit theft or a crime of violence is first-degree burglary. Okay, but is burglary a violent crime? Burglary in the second degree, non-violent, is burglary of a dwelling without an aggravating circumstance. So it doesn't say burglary is a violent crime. What about first-degree burglary?
Yes, we're spurging over violence of burglary, ladies and gentlemen. This is the
What is the
big-brained
difference between first and
argument.
second? Okay, with first-degree burglary, someone has entered the home of another person with the aim to commit violence and or theft. Interesting. So there are 4 degrees of burglary, and only in the first degree of burglary is there even a possibility of violent intent being considered, and yet...
Yes. And what we don't know is that whether or not this stat includes all forms of burglary or just the violent variety, the first degree of burglary. So we don't know whether or not PragerU is being disingenuous or not. That's kind of up in the air. We need to see their data. They do have a citation here. bjs.gov/content/pub/pdf. Anyways, I'll be providing that at the bottom of the in the link description.
we have lumped all burglary in as being a violent
We don't know if it's all burglary, but you can make that case.
crime. Interesting. That's a sneaky way to play with data. I would be willing to bet that as little as perhaps a tenth of the burglary charges listed here are first degree with intent to commit violence. Now, I don't know that for a fact, of course, but this seems like a very, very narrow portion of the total range of burglary crimes. But hey, fit it in to try and prove your narrative all you like. Even if we added all burglaries to the violent crimes, that's still 40% of crimes that are nonviolent.
What's more, drug offenders who do end up in prison don't actually serve very much time.
That is completely irrelevant to the broader argument that is being made here, but okay.
No,
Almost
it's not.
half are released within a year. The truth is
That is completely irrelevant. Hey guys, if most drug offenders are released within a year, but the prison population of drug offenders remains stable, that should tell you just how many fucking people are getting arrested for drug offenses. The less time they spend in prison, the more people have to go in there to maintain those statistics.
Yes, and it's 50% in federal, 15% overall in state. What's your fucking point?
Think about that. If over a period of 20 years, a given prison has had at all times 100 drug offenders in there, that's 100 people who are locked up. But if the average person gets out only after a year, that means 2,000 people on average had to serve a sentence for drug offenses in there. That's a point against his argument, not for it.
is that most criminals probably spend less time in prison than you think, even for the most violent crimes. According to the Bureau of Justice...
This is a complete pivot from the earlier argument. So the earlier argument was that it's a rare exception to have, like, for people to be locked up non-violently, and at best, he's able to indicate 60% of lockups are for violent offenses, but in all likelihood, it's probably in the ballpark of 52 to 54%.
So we dropped from 60 to 52 to 44. Is that really worth even sneezing at, Vaush? Really? Is it really worth pissing on the fact that we still have this problem?
Statistics, almost 40% of released state prisoners served less than a year in prison.
Probably because they were locked up for bullshit drug offenses that they couldn't be sentenced for long periods of time for. Vaush, 25% is missing, no? Yeah, because that 25% would be non-violent crimes, and it hurts his argument, so he doesn't want to show the entire data.
Or those violent crimes include things like, tax evasion, what would you call it? White collar crime. The crime that socialists usually cry and bitch about the most. So it actually hurts Vaush's argument that these people are even in prison. But let's not talk about that.
List.
Even 20% of murderers and nearly 60% of those convicted of rape or sexual assault served less than 5 years in prison.
Okay. This is a very misleading statistic without context. Less than 5 years in prison. What degree murder? That's very important. Rape or sexual assault? Those are two very different things. Rape, like when people hear rape or sexual...
I love how Vaush is suddenly willing to give the benefit of the doubt when it comes to murders and rapes and sexual assaults, but when it came to burglaries, he had to assume the absolute worst. Thanks for arguing in good faith, Vaush. We counted on you. We knew you could do it.
Assault, their mind instantly goes to like fucking alley, like gang rape or something. But if we're saying rape or sexual assault, this means, hey, if you like a giant piece of shit and you're in public and you like smack some bitch's titties and they fucking jiggle all over the place and you get a...
I think Vaush is sympathetic to the titty smacking perverts, which, I guess that's his thing.
arrested for it, you're out in less than 5 years. Like, okay, that sounds a little bit more reasonable, you know? As for the murderers, like, there are different degrees of murder. Like, again, this is a huge, like, range of data that is being compressed into a very, very narrow range of percentages, so that this guy can make the argument that all of them suit his narrative, which is not the case.
What explains the short stays? Answer: plea bargaining. Most prosecutions never go to court. Instead, a deal is made between the defendant's attorney and the prosecutor to avoid going to trial.
Smacking titties is 5 years? I don't fucking know. Maybe it's less of... I don't know. Don't slap titties unless people ask you to, in which case do slap titties. But if the people don't ask you to, don't slap the titties. If there's some ambiguity as to whether or not the person you're with wants you to slap their titties, ask them, hey, do you want to have your titties slapped, you know? Sometimes there can be a little bit of ambiguity. I'll help you out, okay? If you're out down on the pier and you're walking around and you see like a cute big booby babe and you think like, God, I want to slap those titties, don't slap those titties. Don't do it. Because
Vaush wants you to serve 5 years for slapping them titties.
she didn't ask for it. And if you're having sex with your girlfriend and she's like, "Oh my God, babe, I'm gonna come slap my titties," then you should slap the titties, because they were asked to.
Oh,
There you go.
oh goodness.
These negotiations often involve the offender agreeing to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence or dropping or downgrading the most
What if I don't want to slap the titties? Then don't slap the titties. I'm sorry. I was falsely assuming your interest in titty slapping.
serious charges. As a result, a prisoner's conviction record often understates the crime that landed him behind bars.
This is absolutely true. And this is where Vaush's cognitive dissonance kicks in, because, reality is really an issue for these people.
In the first place.
Yeah, but that's just how our justice system works. What? Okay, again, this is another example of this dipshit who knows better, condensing a complicated issue in such a way as to make his point. So what he's saying is, because like 98 or some shit % of cases are settled with plea bargains, that means that people are like often serving sentences for crimes that are lesser than the crimes they actually committed.
That is actually true. There's a huge difference between what a police officer is called out to address, whether it's a domestic assault, whether it's a violence, whether it's a regular assault, and there's a huge difference between what they're able to prosecute and what they're able to make stick, what they're able to charge you with, what they're able to take you to a judge and have you tried for. It is a lot easier to convict a drug charge than it is to convict a domestic violence, because we have the issue of witnesses and relationships and other drama that, quite honestly, it's just easier sticking with the drug charge.
But what he's failing to acknowledge, and this is very important, is that the plea bargain system also means the state does not have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person is guilty.
Yes, and the trade-off for not having to prove that you're guilty is that you don't have to serve the time required that the state would have to prove a higher charge. Like, violence, like murder, like assault. The reason why they don't have to prove anything is because you plead guilty. There's no work to be done. You are, in essence, saying, I did it. They don't have to prove anything if beyond all reasonable doubt you're the one saying, I fucking did it. There's nothing to prove. You said you did it and you pay the price, and the deal is you admit that you did wrong for a lesser sentence and a lesser conviction for the crime you committed.
Meaning the plea bargain system is designed in such a way as to hasten the justice system, sort of like trial processing, and absolve the state of its responsibility to prove a case.
No, no, no. The state is not absolving itself its ability to prove a case. You are choosing the path of least resistance, which the state is not exactly responsible for. You made that choice. You deal with the consequences.
Many people go to prison while innocent because they're pushed into a position where they have to take a plea bargain or spend years expensively fighting for their freedom in court.
Oh my gosh. It doesn't matter.
But that other
Don't
side
plead
of the
guilty.
equation...
Okay, no one, not a single lawyer worth his damn is going to tell you to take a plea bargain for something you didn't do. You take the plea bargain for something that you are guilty for, but can take a lesser penalty for. If you are not guilty, you don't take the plea bargain. That's public defense 101. Literally.
Where a ton of people are getting thrown in jail without defending themselves because they know they don't have the time, money, resources, or like anything else to prove their innocence or
It's called a public defender. You can get one for free. And as you're about to find out, the reason that they're so hyperextended is because everyone is supposed to get one. Everyone gets a public defender, Vaush.
defend their innocence in court. That's being ignored. Only one half of the equation of plea bargains' effect on the justice system is being placed here, so we can all get the impression that actually our prisons are full of dangerous criminals who are being locked up for 7 months in spite of serial raping toddlers, and they're out today and they've got your name on their mind, bitch. But that's just not the case.
He did that too well. He did that way too well. I'm concerned.
For example, an armed burglar who, when arrested, was found to be in possession of illegal drugs might go to prison not for his worst crime, the armed burglary, but for a plea bargain charge of, say, trespass and drug possession. But the media and the activists...
That is not likely.
Citation. No. Seriously. Show me the citation of someone who, when taking a plea bargain, accepts that they also have to do time for all of the shit they did wrong rather than just one of the things they did wrong. Show me the citation, Vaush, where people are not using the plea bargain system to reduce their sentence for the lesser charge. At your leisure, sir.
Like, that is not a likely case. It is not like...
It is absolutely likely. It is what the plea bargain system is for, and that's honestly why we haven't illegalized the drug war. That's why. Because criminals who do violent shit, do stupid shit, also happen to carry lots of drugs on them. So that makes it really easy to get them on the other shit they did really, really bad, like, assault and burglary and all this other stuff, when you could just get them on the drug charge. Because, as I'm saying before, the point of contact from the 911 call to the individual in question, to the, future convict, there might not be an opportunity to make a case for the really bad shit they did that got that call out to begin with. But, hey, you prove to me, Vaush, that that's not exactly how a plea bargain system works, despite your intimate knowledge of the system.
Likely that a fucking... Bullshit, dude. Oh yeah, that happens all the time. Prosecutors will definitely settle an armed burglary case for possession and distribution.
Charge of, say, trespass and drug possession.
Trespass and drug... Oh yeah, absolutely. Prosecutors do that all the fucking time, dude. Hey, we got this criminal...
They absolutely would. They absolutely would if the business owner did not want to press charges on the criminal in question. They absolutely would. It is absolutely possible. It is absolutely in the realm of reality that someone who's in possession of illegal drugs will not be charged for burglary and assault, but for trespass and drug possession. because this thing that the mafia uses is called intimidation. It's what makes the underworld work. You understand that, right?
Here he literally like fucking burgled with a fucking weapon. What do you want to do? He's
He burgled. He burgled, guys. He burgled. He fucking burgled.
willing to take a plea bargain. Oh, let's just let him off. 2 years in prison, misdemeanor, trespass with drug possession.
Yes, that's exactly what happens. Congratulations, Vaush. You're learning.
Whatever, no big deal. That doesn't fucking happen. Or if it does happen, that happens incredibly infrequently.
No.
But the media and the activists don't.
Wait, to be honest, Vaush is seriously overestimating the people who simply can't afford lawyers. Oh, yeah, sure, we can take a look at that. How many people use public defenders? Is there a, about half of large county felony defendants with a public defender. No, it's a huge percentage.
He can't find it because everyone who cannot afford a lawyer is given a public defender.
Yeah, the Mondo for Punch guy's an idiot, but still. Here. How often are public defenders?
Don't you like how the first thing in his search bar is stimulus check?
Used. Public defender averaging 240 cases a year each.
Yes, because everyone, and I repeat it, regardless of how many cases a public defender must work in a year, everyone gets one for free.
Okay, I'm just going to put it this way, okay? Because I don't want to spend too much time
He can't find shit.
like fucking looking up data or something, okay? If the average public defender has like hundreds of cases a year, that's probably an indication that their system is overloaded, meaning that a fuck ton of people need this. Generally, it's poor people who need public defenders, you know? Obviously, not like real rich people.
And they get them, hence the overload.
Or whatever. But most of the people in prison are poor. So it tracks. That's a large number of people.
Tell us about this rather important detail. Instead, all we hear about is the poor fellow who's serving time for selling a small amount of cocaine.
Yeah, because that's, well, wait, no. Usually when people like do waterworks over people who are imprisoned, it's not drug sellers, it's drug users. I have never in my life heard somebody go, it's so unfair how many drug sellers or how many drug dealers get locked up. I've never heard that. I've never, ever.
Vaush has never been online. He is new to the internet. He has never heard of the ANCAPs. They do not exist. We are sorry, but your community has just been annihilated. Vaush no longer acknowledges your existence. ANCAPs, you have to start from scratch. You will rebuild.
Never heard that. It's always users. It's always people who use the drugs.
This assumes, of course, that the convicted criminal does any time at all. Studies done by the Justice Department show that only about 40% of felony convictions lead to a prison sentence. Yes, many are given probation, sentenced to home confinement, or given credit for time served. Yes, many are given probation, sentenced to home confinement, or given credit for time served in pretrial detention.
Then there you go. Then there you go. The other 60% are given probation, home confinement, or given credit for time served in pretrial.
No, see, here's what Vaush is autistically and almost overtly skimming past. When you commit a crime and you're convicted for that crime, the expectation to society is that you will pay the price for that crime. The idea that you can be convicted and then be like, all right, we think you're done now. That really doesn't work for most people. You being convicted does not usually mean, oh, hey, yeah, we've decided that you've done it, that you're guilty. Don't do it again. There's the door. In essence. Now, he talks about time served in jail. I'll let him say a little more on that.
Trial detention. Do you have any idea how long people can spend in jail? Do you have any fucking clue? There are people who have literally spent multiple years in jail without even a guilty conviction, just waiting for their trial to end because they can't afford bail or they weren't given bail. Trials.
Or, hear me out, they're doing the right thing by not taking a plea bargain. But despite that, there are people who are guilty and they're found guilty. And despite being in the jail and not being convicted quite yet, they still have to do their time. Why are these people who have committed violent offenders, if I'm remembering correctly, and we're still on the violent offender paradigm, someone who has committed a violent act should not be in jail for so long, that they get time served for their sentence in jail. No, you commit a violent crime, you should be in jail for an extended duration. Not maybe 2 or 3 years, I'm thinking maybe, 10, 15. If we're doing like a violent crime, which if I recall is still the topic at hand. So, yeah, it's atrocious that someone who's committing a violent crime, despite having to wait for their trial to finish up in like 2 or 3 years, is given credit for time served in the jail, in so much that they do not spend a single night in the prison. That is a problem.
Can take years sometimes. So yeah, there you go. Like, what point is this supposed to be?
But most of the time, convicted criminals don't go to prison.
Yeah, you just explained why. What? Like, did you know 60% of convicted federal? Notice how he's only doing federal now, even though just earlier he said 90% of he said that 90% of the cases people in prison were state. Notice how earlier he's like, well, you can't use data from federal prisons to extrapolate positions on the rest of the prison population. They only make up like 10% of the total number of people in prison. But now we're talking about how federal convictions like have a lot of people on probation or whatever, and he like uses only federal data without state data. Actually, we can look up state data. I wonder how much he's lying about this too. State conviction prison sentencing rate. I have a feeling this is going to be a difficult stat to find off the cuff.
Let's see what he finds. I'm actually very interested in this. This is going to be good, guys.
Convictions lead to...
Come on, Vaush, I believe in you. I believe in you. You can do it. You can do it.
Are you covered, homie? Oh, shit.
Okay, let's see this. Okay, so he zooms right on in. Okay, let's look at this, guys. Notice how he just kind of zooms right in, so you can't really absorb what the pie chart says. So here we have, federal prisons and jails, the marshals, and the convicted, immigration, drugs, other, public order, and then drugs massively, again over in federal. Local jails, you have convicted, and then you have non-convicted, because jails are for waiting periods. But let's, I know you can't see it here, but this huge swath over here in the state prisons is the violent section. 713,000 people in state prisons. Now, you see this little sliver right here? That's all drugs. Drug charges, drug offenses. Now, out of 1,291,000, we have 190,000 drug offenses, give or take. That is less than 1/6 of the entire state prisons is drugs. So this whole 50% non-violent offender bullshit because of the drug war is complete bullshit. Now, you can't see it, but his chat's in the way of it. But this section right here is all property crime. Whether it's theft, whether it's burglary, whether it's fraud, but it also happens to include what we would call white-collar crime. Vaush is not interested in getting rid of this section whatsoever. And to be clear, this burglary section right here, there's a good chunk of it that's still quote unquote violent. We have theft over here. It says other property. So on and so forth. So I like how he kind of zooms in here, and if you actually analyze this data and look at this chart, it doesn't support his argument at all, but he pretends that it does.
But remember, guys, earlier he was very, very keen to make sure people knew that the percentage of nonviolent offenders in federal prisons wasn't representative of the general whole, but now he's very excited to make a point that...
Yes, and as we see, as represented in state prisons, the violent offenders make up more than 50% of the population. The drug offenders, as predicted, is less than 1/6 or around 15%. We have the burglaries, as PragerU accurately predicted. We don't even know if this is the same year, but the statistics are still that consistent.
Makes it seem as though everyone is just getting out of jail willy-nilly because of some stats on federal prisons. Very curious. Fascinating. I feel like I'm on my game.
Yes, the last one is public order. This is like intoxication. It could also be like an assault charge, as we discussed about police being called out, and whether or not that's one of the things that people get called out for, that there could have been a higher charge, but they dropped it to something else because public order was all they could get them on, despite the fact that they were in a fight and no one else was willing to press charges for the assault that took place. So this chart does not prove Vaush right in any way, shape, or form. He's just going to pretend that it does.
I feel like I'm calling this guy on every single fucking stupid shit he says.
You keep believing that, sweetheart. You keep believing that.
I'm feeling good today.
Do we really want even more criminals out on the street?
Yep! Because we have too many. We have not only the most prisoners per capita, we have more prisoners flat than any other country in the world, including the authoritarian CCP, including fucking India. Yeah, absolutely. I want more. Yes, I do.
Well, you heard it first. Vaush is pro-crime and pro-criminal. Congrats, Vaush. We salute you.
Activists say yes.
Hey. He called it.
Scholars at the left-leaning Brennan Center have called for an immediate 40% reduction in the number of inmates.
Well, considering the fact that the data you provided earlier indicated that
and the data that we just looked at in the pie chart that if you broke it down, really revealed that there was a far more violent crime action going on when people are arrested. Yeah, you don't want 40% of these people out. But okay, keep shoving your head up your ass on this one.
About 40% or more of inmates are nonviolent offenders? That actually seems to track up with the data you're trying to mask pretty effectively, I'd say.
CNN host Van Jones, founder of the #Cut50 initiative, tops that. He wants a 50% reduction.
That is 20% more based than the previous suggestion.
Vaush can't do math. You'll figure that out in a few seconds.
But if the activists get their way, the cost would be high and would likely be paid by the most vulnerable.
Wait. So when we say cost, we don't mean literal money, because the prison industrial complex eats a huge amount of fucking money, and we would save a huge amount of money by letting these people out.
Yes, Vaush. The cost is societal. The cost is the high increase of you being the victim of a crime, which, if compounded and repeated, will eventually incur an economic impact which you probably will not enjoy.
Back out in society. Vaush can't do math. 10% is 20% of 40. Wait, no, it's 25%. Nope, I can't do math. Never mind. Listen, I'm a sociology major, okay? Listen, I didn't pay attention in stats. Just whatever.
We are having an argument that hinges upon one's knowledge and appreciation of statistics. And he just openly admits he cannot do statistics.
Don't worry about it, okay? Sorry, I had to assign all my IQ to paying attention to all the stupid shit this guy's saying. I didn't have any left over to do the math.
Oh my god.
Most crimes are committed by a small fraction of the population who primarily victimize their own communities. Here's an all too common example.
Whoa, 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 whoa! People were saying, let's reduce the number of people in prisons. Do you think they were referring to, like, serial murderers?
You know, Vaush, but when you say reduce the number of people in prisons, and you acknowledge that there is a plea bargaining system that allows people to not go to jail for the more heinous things that they've done, because that's how a plea bargain works, or the charges reduced based on the officers or the court's ability to convict them on said charge or crime, yes, you will invariably get violent offenders released through this process. That's how it works. That's not controversial, Vaush.
Like, I love the implication. Like, hey, let's cut down our prison population. This guy's like, you really want to let Dave, the baby raper, out? You really want to let Sarah Z. Longnails, who killed and ate 17 people with her long nails? Like, no. Those people can...
Well, when Sarah Longnails couldn't get her boyfriend to say that she committed the violent acts out of being, fearful of A, his life, and B, his human dignity because he let a bitch beat the crap out of him. And she's not actually charged for murder, she's charged for, domestic family violence instead of, violent assault. Yeah. Yes, Sarah, human eating nails is going to get released into Gen Pop. The plebs, you and I, will have to deal with her, and you're gonna have to swipe with her on Tinder someday. So enjoy that.
Stay in prison. I'm okay with that. Maybe there are other people we could let out?
Yes, but where are these angels? That's the thing, everyone who is in jail generally had a point of contact with law enforcement that escalated things to their current state. Who are these angelic beings you speak of, Vaush?
In the spring of 2019, 2 men were charged with the murder of a...
Oh, we're going full anecdote on this. We're going full anecdote, Andy.
Wait for it. It's relevant.
Chicago woman who was shot while holding her baby. One of the men charged had 9 felony convictions, including for a 2004 second-degree murder charge.
And there you have it. One of the men had 9 felony convictions, and because of the way the system prison is run with plea bargains and with... he knew the game. He knew he could get a felony conviction, be out in a year or two, with good behavior and parole. And because we have a overflowing system that doesn't work or rehabilitate the prisoner, this is what we get. This is not controversial. Tons of people do not serve their time when they should.
A January 2017 University of Chicago crime lab study found that on average, someone arrested for a homicide or shooting in that city had nearly 12 prior arrests. Almost 20% had more than 20.
Okay, so here's some important distinctions here. An arrest is not a conviction. An arrest can happen for a great many number of reasons. I would be willing to bet most of the people who commit homicide or a shooting in a city are usually working with some kind of gang activity, and gang members are very often arrested in batches.
Okay. Again, neither one of us has statistics on this except for, Urban Lab's Crime Lab, which states correctly that on average, someone arrested for a homicide or shooting had nearly 12 prior arrests. Now, if someone has 12 prior arrests, that means there were 12 points of contact for which this individual was involved with the police directly. Someone had the police called on them, and they stayed in that area for a long enough time for police to arrive and put them in handcuffs. There was shouting, there was yelling, there was an altercation of some point, of some sort, and they were so comfortable in that environment for an extended duration of anywhere from 10 to 30, 45 minutes to an hour. They stayed in that area, in that environment, to the point that they were arrested. And this happened 12 times. Just because the police are not able to charge you with anything after such an arrest doesn't mean you're innocent. Now, that doesn't mean that we should be arresting or convicting people who are not guilty of a crime. What it means is we are establishing a pattern of behavior, and that our ability to discipline criminals or apprehend them is flawed, and that people who are arrested for homicides in the Chicago area are entrenched in this, and they're apparently adept at avoiding charges and convictions in that city. Let's continue.
In an attempt to try and get one of them to squeal on the purported criminal activity of one of the people being arrested. Being arrested doesn't mean being charged, and it doesn't mean being convicted. Big difference. This data proves nothing.
Wrong. It proves that there is a ton of wiggle room between people who have what you would call an event with police where there is probable cause to arrest them, and they're not able to make the charge stick. And if they were able to make a charge stick, like maybe a drug charge or drug possession, they would do so.
Literally nothing. If you want to make the argument that we should cut down on gangs in communities, yeah, that's great. You know how you do that? End the fucking drug war.
And that's where we have a problem. I don't know where Vaush gets the idea that ending the drug war would be the end all of gangs. It won't. Gangs are full of people who want to protect their black market. It doesn't matter whether that black market is alcohol, hard drugs, prostitution, sex trafficking, gun for hire, anything they can sell them. The gang exists to make a money on the black market. That's the only reason a gang exists, and they exist because they want to participate in the black market. There is not a scenario in any decent civilized society where you cannot have a black market and those individuals willing to exploit it. The ANCAP utopia fantasy is precisely a fantasy. It's not going to happen. Criminals are criminals because they choose to be criminals. And they choose to participate in the black market. If it's not drugs, if it's not alcohol, if it's not whatever it is, it will be something else. The idea that we can cut down or remove one vice, it will surely be replaced by another. And that is an entirely separate debate from whether or not drug use is harmful, which debate I'm not even having right now.
The only reasons gangs exist is because they need to mobilize to protect something.
Yes, they're black market cash cow.
And the thing they need to protect is their income source, and the income source they're trying to protect is the drugs that get schlepped up from the rest of the
And eliminating the drugs will not eliminate the gangs. They will just move on to another source of income.
world so they can sell in their communities, lower the general quality of life while they scrape by a meager living off of the only economic...
Why the fuck are we having sympathy for gang members participating in the black market, trying to, quote-unquote, scrape by a meager living? Who gives a shit?
avenues they've been given. End the drug war and invest in those communities. Gang violence will be cut down 90% in 2 decades.
Bullshit.
Guaranteed. Easy. Easiest call in my life. Legalize those drugs. Treat drug addiction like a medical issue rather than a fucking criminal issue. Stop hyper over-policing these communities because that only leads to a greater cycle of violence.
All right. This is a myth. What he's invoking without saying it is the phenomenon that happened in, I believe it's Catalonia, where they decriminalized drug use because the drug users need help to get well. What the arguers for legalizing drugs won't tell you about Catalonia is try being a drug dealer in Catalonia, and I swear to God, they will throw your ass to the wall, turn you around, and nail you to it faster than you can save a free market.
Down the road. And invest in them so there are business opportunities in these communities so people can go work in...
No one, not a single society who has legalized drug use has legalized its sale to the public in a ANCAP drug or gang-friendly environment. Ever. You are lying to your audience.
Instead of fucking 13-year-old gangbangers having to go to their local drug lord because they need money because their mom has chemo payments that she can't meet, instead, they can wait until they're fucking 16 and then...
Oh my God, the golden child. The impoverished golden child who did nothing wrong. He's just a victim of circumstance. Statistics.
they can go work at a 7-Eleven or a fucking Safeway or something. That's what we need, and that's what they need. This data proves nothing.
If we cut prison rolls by 20, 40, or 50%, it won't be politicians and media celebrities living in gated communities who will pay the price.
I love it. Again, what 20, 40, or 50%?
It doesn't matter because ultimately you're not God and no one knows truly at the point of contact what these people were engaged in, why the police were called, and why they were arrested, and why they were convicted of a crime, of a violent crime. You don't know who these people are, neither do they. That's the fucking point.
I love the implicit suggestion, like, oh yeah, we're letting people out. Let's let out the murder wing, and yeah, the rape wing. Oh yeah, that one. That's Bazooka Killboy over there. Yeah, we let him keep the bazooka, behind bars, no ammunition, but outside it's America, baby. He can load that thing right up. Okay, yeah, you're out. You're free. All you pieces of shit who made your way in here because you were caught smoking a fucking joint outside of a parking lot, you're staying in here for the rest of your life, motherfucker. Now, maybe...
Citation on people arrested just for smoking a joint in the parking lot. Goddamn, I live in Texas. No one arrests anyone for just smoking a joint in the parking lot. I've never seen it. You have to be acting a fool to get your ass arrested for weed. All I'm saying, man.
Maybe we release the portions of the population that we can statistically assure are very unlikely to engage in violent activity. I think that's good.
And you're going to be able to discern that by what metric? Their conviction? How are you going to measure this? Pray tell.
It won't be politicians and media celebrities living in gated communities who will pay the price.
And this is the liberal media elite bullshit. Like, yes, these hoity-toity Ivy League graduates in their gated communities won't have to... This is some NIMBY shit. They won't have to suffer the indignity of living amongst criminals. Well, sorry to tell you, fuckers. Most of you live around criminals. Everyone across the country smokes weed. White and black do it same rate. Black folk get locked up 4 times as often for it. Why is that, you ask? Well, no matter why that might be, the inevitable consequence of this is a long-term cycle of violence and economic inequality that leads inevitably to more crime, some of which will invariably be violent.
The champagne socialist cries, "More racism!"
And racism. Racism, that's part of it, too. Pretty big part of it, as a matter of fact.
It will be the law-abiding citizens in underserved neighborhoods struggling to get ahead who will pay. When it comes to debates about...
Actually, ooh! I did my baccalaureate thesis.
This is funny. He's about to wink to himself.
Months of research and dozens of pages of writing on the potential economic benefits of prison vocational programs, the idea of making sentencing guidelines more lenient and investing in prisons so we could give people the opportunity to develop job skills. All available evidence suggests that as long as prisoners are treated decently and given a modicum of consideration with regards to their development of personal life skills, their release into the community had massively positive effects. Now, this doesn't apply to fucking murdering Susie.
The comments at Vaush, did your paper get a passing grade? I'm sorry, I'll let him continue.
Or whatever. Those aren't the people we're talking about releasing. We're talking about people with fairly low-level offenses, non-violent offenses, drug offenses, that sort of thing. You give these people job skills, you reintroduce them to your community, holy shit, you've got an entire new fucking boom of workers. Isn't that incredible? Your average fucking person, you have to raise for 18 years and put hundreds of thousands of dollars of education and food into until they're able to meaningfully contribute to society.
All right. Hang on. Did he just... Hang on. A criminal is in our penitentiary system, our punitive system, our penal system, and they've already been raised. They've already had hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on them. They've already existed through the ages of 0 to 18, and they still failed. They still fucked up. They still had to be sent for how shall we call it, Vaush's reprogramming sessions. And we still have to pay more money for them, and you're arguing this is more efficient and better than raising the child to begin with? This is why you don't trust socialists with shit.
You let a guy out of prison with carpentering skills, that person instantly capable.
It's not fucking instant, dumbass. They had to be raised from 0 to 18, fuck up their lives, fuck up someone else's life, go into whatever program you're making for them, spend even more money on them, giving them this carpentry skill, and then they're ready for society. We are still in a deficit with these individuals, you fucking dumbass.
Of helping their community. Incredible. All available evidence, to my knowledge, unless there's some data that I didn't get a chance to take a look at. This was like a slam dunk for me. All available evidence suggests.
That whole reasoning was your slam dunk. The education system has failed us, brothers and sisters. It's...
That the intelligent and peaceful reintroduction of prisoners to the community is an economic benefit to those communities, and those benefits increase proportionally the poorer that community is.
That's all nice, and I hear you. It's better to rehabilitate and gain a positive response from these inmates. One problem: PragerU is not proposing a hypothetical, a new program, a new and improved way of doing things. PragerU is addressing reality as it is today. That this is not about hope and change. This is about what is. So your notion about removing people from the prison system, with or without your bullshit jobs program reprogramming bullshit, has fuck all to do with the fact that criminals are not serving their time, that they're not as innocent as we've been led to believe, and we rightfully don't want them around us.
Ah, excellent. What is this? 45% of people have been convicted for nonviolent crimes.
Okay, I'm glad that he pulled that up. I will be providing the link that PragerU actually cites, which is the 2016 report from the Bureau of Justice. So he's pulling up the wrong study. This does not disprove the claims by PragerU.
Oh no, dude, idiot. It's just a rare exception. Fucking idiot. Everyone
And I love how you didn't even get to read it, though. Isn't that precious?
who's in prison is a murderer or a rapist, and any differentiation from that completely it's just a statistical aberration. You know, what are you gonna do? Dumb.
Citizens in underserved neighborhoods struggling to get ahead who will pay.
Now, again, this is factually incorrect. I literally wrote a thesis on this.
Yes, and your system, your hypothetical thesis on this isn't real. You made a theory. You invented a program in your head that you could impose upon society that would improve society. You have in no way negated any claims made by PragerU.
That I will not be revealing to the public because my level of writing quality is abysmal back then compared to what it is now because I have a bigger brain now.
When it comes to debates about criminal justice policy,
I could fucking crush your asshole between my thumb and forefinger. Who is this son of a bitch? Fucking Policy Institute? Hey, you want debates? Come on my stream. I'm serious. I'll flex it.
Vaush will debate you. He will debate you, motherfucker.
Come on my fucking stream. I want it to be known. I don't care if this person's on PragerU and therefore 20 times my size. I don't give a shit. Come on my stream. Every single fucking thing you said here was provably wrong. This isn't some blonde, like...
It wasn't, but continue.
Blasé, like, philosophical issue. This isn't like the right of the Enlightenment, conservative. This isn't some stupid abstract argument. This is hard numbers, and you're wrong. I could beat you on every single fucking point you tried to throw up here. Maybe one day I'll get to see you here. My goal, my fucking idealized goal, this channel is now a vessel that I will build until it is tall enough, a Tower of Babel, that I can fucking chop it down at the base and crash it on your head, motherfucker.
Vaush is now becoming the final solution for PragerU.
Okay, you have contradicted the research of my thesis work.
How dare you contradict the work of his thesis?
All right, I'm coming for you. I don't care how long it takes.
He's gonna come hard. He's a champagne socialist. He loves the gay.
Got this person's name on my list.
These people, not criminals, should come first. I'm Rafael Mengual, Deputy Director of Legal Policy at the Manhattan Institute for Prager University. Thank you for watching.
Nice! Meme. It's important to remember, and this is like an addendum, you know, it's very, very important to remember that, God almighty. It's very important to remember that, if we're looking to reduce...
Yeah, we're not looking to reduce anything, Vaush. We're not looking to do shit about it, to be perfectly honest. PragerU was just telling the story of things as they are. And the way things as they are is not only do we have the phenomenon of the plea bargain system, but it's those moments of first contact, the reasons why the police are called out that gives me the most pause, and there is no study. There's no study about what an individual was anticipated to be arrested for, because that doesn't exist. But when you find out that these drug dealers, that these drug possession charges were in fact initially called out for mostly domestic violence, for family violence, for a burglary or an assault, or some horrendous gang turf war event where no one is going to step forward and speak out. That's where that to me is where the the rubber hits the pavement, because that's the reality that we don't see, is the first point of contact, in addition to the buffering of the plea bargain system. Yeah, it just screws with reality, screws with, because we live in a liberal system that's made uh, that's almost made to fail. It is difficult as hell to get a conviction. The burden of proof, the burden of proof of innocent until proven guilty is made to be adversarial in this way, and for this reason. So it just doesn't flush. Vaush's ideas and his rants in no way debunk PragerU. They're just against his ideology. It goes against his preferred worldview. It goes against what he wished society would do. And that's pretty much my takeaway. Leave any comments below. As always, I will provide links, one to the Liberalist Facebook group, as well as to the studies that PragerU cited in their video. As always, guys, stay carnal.